In order to fully understand smart objects and smart filters and how all these smart things work, first of all, we need to kind of revisit the way we normally do things without smart objects, just so we really put into context how beneficial these smart objects can be. So I've got a fairly basic layout here. You can see I have a graphic on a layer by itself. I have some type on a layer by itself. I also have the phone with an adjustment layer to change the color of the display of the phone to kind of match the background graphic. And it's, of course, saved as a multi-layered Photoshop file. So let's look at pre-smart objects and smart filters if I want to make some changes to this. For example, if I decide I want to change the color of this graphic, it's currently green, so I'm going to change it to more of, say, a yellow color. So I choose yellow, and then I use the fill command. I'm going to fill it using my foreground color, but I'm going to turn on preserve transparency to change the color of it. Changes just the color of that. So that's very easy to do. And at the same time, I would also like to make it a little smaller. So let's make it a small little graphic that we put over here somewhere as a design element. And let's pretend at this time that I now saved and closed this document and now reopened it later on. In order to put it back the way it was, well, I guess I could take a stab at what color. I know it was greenish, so I can, I don't know, something like that. Pick a color and do the same thing. Fill, foreground color, preserve transparency. Okay, that's all good. That's close. And then I can also try to free transform it back up, but this is where you really run into a problem, because you can see when you try and scale something back up again, it just loses quality. It just doesn't look very good at all. And that's just always been the way that it's worked. The third example in this document, and then we'll start seeing the difference of smart objects, is with text. If I have a type layer like this, it's editable type, as you can see, and I want to apply a filter to it. For example, maybe I want to apply a texture. So I go to Texturizer, and I get this warning message that says the type layer must be rasterized. Its text will no longer be editable, and then it's asking me to rasterize the type. And if I click OK to be able to apply the filter, the problem is, well, I can't edit the type anymore. So if I change my mind about font, spelling, size, anything like that, I'm out of luck. For example, if I try to transform it up, because it's not type anymore, it's going to lose quality. So I'm going to revert this document back to square one to show you the difference of where smart objects come into play. So now we're back to square one. Now we'll look very quickly at how we turn things into smart objects, but I'm just going to do it really quickly here. Right click and choose Convert to Smart Object. So now this gives me a couple of very interesting possibilities. For example, now if I free transform it really small and use it as a design element, again, same scenario, save it, close it, come back sometime later. The difference this time is because it's smart, it means it remembers how big it was. So if I free transform it back up, again, even after closing and saving, you can see I can bring it right back up to the original size without losing any quality. So one of the things that Smart Objects does is it remembers information about itself. What about changing color? Right now it's this green color. If I want to edit it, change color, I can't just simply fill. If I try to fill, it's saying you can't because a Smart Object is not directly editable. So what I do instead is this layer, which is the Smart Object, I double click on it, brings me back to my original. And what I'd probably do, quite frankly, is do something like a hue saturation adjustment layer, because that way I can change the hue to something, close it, and save it, and now it updates here. And any time, if I want to edit the color of this graphic, I simply double click on it, come back to this adjustment layer, and make whatever change that I want. So that's a big plus, because instead of worrying about making any kind of change that's permanent, this does it for me. And the same thing applies with type. Remember before when I tried to apply a filter to the type, it had me rasterize. Well, if I make this a smart object and go to my filter menu and apply that texturizer filter, it lets me do it. Let's make it very obvious. Click OK. But the difference is, same scenario. This is still an editable type layer, so if I double click on it, it lets me come in here, make whatever change that I want. When I save it, it will update over here, but still has the filter applied. So that's kind of the, in a nutshell, some of the key basics and importance of what a smart object is. In the next lessons, we'll look at how to create them, how to work more detail with smart filters, some of the things you can't do, and also some examples where we can really take this up a notch.